Thatcher. So now you're going to be able to see it. Thatcher makes obviously a lot of sense. You're looking for a lot of heart breach. So
we saw that with EG versus Reciprocity on Monday night, and that was a big game changer, mostly against EG for doing the ban. This ban as well is going to make it really Maverick-centric. LATAM, as in general, has picked up Maverick pretty quickly, so I don't anticipate a lot of problems. And so Team 1 might have been really banking on hopefully catching INTZ off guard with that, but at the same time, they're very comfortable dealing with that. I think it's going to come down to maybe even some runouts to counterplay against the Maverick.
Yeah, and it's worked pretty well in the past as well, so it wouldn't be surprising if any of that happened this evening. A lot of play is going to happen around Garage. I mean, we've gotten quite a few of those sorts of plays recently. Team 1, of course, will ban out Echo, our final operator here, removed off in the ban phase. That'll prepare us for the game itself. So it's usually the Echo or the Maestro that's banned. You know, not surprising with that. Valkyrie, very rarely, if not almost never, banned by LATAM in Brazil versus Brazil matches, just because of how important the operator is for a lot of these more frag-heavy players that run it, usually.
There's the Maverick and the Lion that could be getting played. We'll see if they actually stick it or they could just be teasing it. As for those of you who aren't aware, Lion is out of his quarantine, as he has been changed a significant amount, tested a lot on TTS and things like that, and I think they've found to be somewhat of an acceptable position at the moment, so he's going to be played with the Captau, going to be snuck in. There's something we've actually seen a fair amount of bans on from different regions just because of how powerful he is with the changes to the way that he is fixating Bolt, does the propagation, and the way it goes down. It's definitely very strong there. You can see people favoring Team 1 a little bit, despite INTZ being the incumbent team here.
Well, now Team 1 starting off downstairs on defense.
Uh-oh.
And I hope everything is good.
May already have a rehost. This happened in NA as well, just the beginning of the round rehost, but we didn't have any after that, so hopefully this will be the similar situation where we don't end up with quite a few of those, but now we have some idea at least how they're going to start things on this.
Please pray with us, ladies and gentlemen. INTZ, of course, do not end up winning this this round, so we'll go back to our faces, unfortunately for some.
Hey, at least we got into the game fast. Now we can talk about it a little bit more and then get back into the game fast.
Well, it's very interesting seeing that very first site that they chose. I mean, it was surprising that anybody would want to play Church.
I mean, let's talk about the line play when it comes to Church, for example. So when it comes to line play in general, sometimes you're using it early for roamer control, for example. This one is a map that like really goes kind of, especially that bomb site, kind of goes 50-50 on roam play, whether or not you actually roam, or maybe even less than that, really, because a lot of teams are just too shy to roam despite the changes to the map that were meant to allow a bit more roam. So it depends on like whether or not they want to be very aggressive or they have good escape routes, things like that. But line makes that much more difficult to make that escape, and it makes it more of a suicide job when you're playing on the roam. So the line being brought out and being stuck, I think kind of forces them to play a bit more of a turtle defense. And then with the Captau and things like that, for example, too, you start ending up forcing people out of positions from both of those and then trapping them in positions as well. I think we could see some interesting, like, you know, where you have the defensive strats where they just all of a sudden get very aggressive.
Well, that's what I want to highlight and double down on. You said how Lion is very good at just lobbing people in certain positions, not really allowing them to move, right?
Yeah.
Well, when you are going for aggressive plays, when you want to actually go for a plant and assault on the site, popping the line is something with the E1D, something we used to see in the past, and it's different, more broken way.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you still can act it in that way where you force people to really stay in their own positions. Now, the beauty of defending Clubhouse and Church is that there's many positions for the defenders where they can stay behind black box, they can stay behind the half
But you have like the mini bar now with Capitao can just be like, guess what, you're leaving that spot. And that's, I think, a big difference is you have the ability to trap people at spots and then the ability to force people out of spots or kill them in there. I think that combo, it can be very lethal in the right hands, despite how short the Lion is now. But you get 3 of them and the cooldowns reduced, so we see a lot of teams saving them more towards the end of the round to actually use them just before execute, during execute pretty much, after execute. So it's become this very rushed thing, especially with so many teams. Over time, this game's trended towards later and later executions. And I think because of that, you're really kind of compressing these 3 Lion bursts into that. But then you have the Capitao bolts to kind of set up for that as well. I don't know, I think that combination, especially LATAM with the way that there's kind of these really quick aggressive plays from both sides, I think it's going to lead to, especially the last 30 seconds of these rounds, just being chaos.
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult to follow it. At least that's, historically speaking, we looked at Season 9's performance for Latin America, and a lot of rounds were just ending off of pure kills or time. Not as much bomb plants or diffuser plants as you'd be expecting for the region compared to others, which is why we're doubling down on this point and saying we're expecting even more chaos by seeing the Capitão unbanned, but seeing the Lion in play. Before, you used to see some Jackal play, some Dokkaebi play, but they weren't really these big operators to be picked out for the region. And we'll see a Lion if that actually fits back into the way that they run it. It's not the different map now.
What surprises me, though, is they didn't go with the Kaid to force the Maverick to have to do the job. Because
Thatcher's banned.
Well, that's what I mean, is they didn't go with that. It's like, on a map like this where you have two hatches that can't really be tricked, you want to have the Kaid, and then, of course, you can trick on the kitchen hatch, right? So you can potentially deny at least Thermite all three hatches, potentially, because there's no Thatcher in play. But the Maverick's going to be doing his thing, and you know, Latim's fairly good at Maverick, but at the same time, forcing someone to stand there and just carve out this line, if you can play Roamer play at the same time, I think is very powerful, because you force them to be very cautious in terms of having someone just standing in one place for a long period of time when roamers are around.
Well, let's look at it in this way. What usually happens when you bring out a Maverick to deal with a church attack? You go in first, you open up the hatch in basically the stock room.
Yeah.
Once that's done, you're down to around half of what's left in your charge. So maybe you'll be able to open the kitchen hatch. Depending on the team, sometimes they'll go for it first.
Risky, though.
Exactly, it's very risky. So what'll happen at times is that you go for the Maverick first to open up the stock hatch. Once that's happened, then you go to kitchen. You'll still use one of the thermite charges to open there, but you only have 2 thermite charges to play around with, and that's the real superpower of just removing the Hibana from play. You could run Hibana Maverick and be completely fine in this situation, whereas with the thermite, it gets a lot more complicated, specifically for the assault here, because you might just have to forego a kitchen attack completely and have to focus your assault from the backside through blue, through oil pit, and just having some sort of control.
I mean, if you want additional pressure on armor, you can push from dirt as well. We just see teams so seldomly do it just because it's so hard to push against the smoke in there with the ADSs and barbed wire. It's very difficult to do. But, you know, teams still try it occasionally. We've seen it, sometimes aggressive pushes with even shields still being attempted.
It doesn't really work that often, though.
It's a super gamble, and that's the thing is in a region where aggression can pay off as well. They can go for it, sometimes even late game, but it's risky, and I think that's what I'm saying is so much of the bans are centered around hatches that it surprises me to not see that Kaid.
Yeah.
I'll let you say the name from now.
Kaid. Well, Kaid's not bad at all the way you're saying.
Trying.
I don't want to seem as someone that wants to harp on these, because I don't. I swear that's not how it is. It's just it's a thing.
Yeah.
I guess. But we are trying to get back into the game as soon as possible.
Yeah, we got everyone back in the lobby. It's just a question of getting the game started here.
Yeah, so thankfully it was the first round, so we don't have to re-enter all the settings.
Yeah.
I remember days where we didn't have that.
Yeah.
Those weren't fun, and our game, I think, is going to start in just a moment. We're just going to check all of our settings, then be ready to go. Hopefully, we won't have any issues, so we can continue on with the day.
And for those of you who aren't familiar, when you do a rehost, you cannot change the operators or the site or anything.
Yes, site
was set up.
Yeah.
So anyone who's joining new. So.
So any site, operator picks, bans, everything is just preset. You have to go with it again. Yeah. You can change which player is playing which op, but they have to all be the same operators.
Didn't realize that.
As far as I know.
was allowed. I've never seen anyone take advantage of it, so not that you really need to. And even if you do 6 picks, you either have to do the same 6 pick or just pick the operator, not 6.
It has to be the final operator that gets played into the round. So there you go.
There you go.
We're going to go back to our church site. There you go. Everything's set. We'll be jumping into game in just a moment. So hold on with us. Let's hope that we don't have any...
Fingers crossed.
...movement and or mouse bugs, and everything is fine. Let's get in. Hey, there's our map.
And there's that smoke potentially setting up for the dirt tunnel I was talking about. I think we'll have ADSs potentially from Lukid, and then, of course, potentially goo mines as well to help with that. But that's, of course, if they even bother. That's the thing, is you kind of need to somewhat commit to dirt, even if you don't know if they're going to go there or not. But we are seeing setup upstairs from Rise. This does suggest roam play going to be happening here, and a bandit instead of the Kaid means they're a little bit more concerned about the church wall rather than hatches.
Yeah, and that actually makes a lot of sense, because getting the hatches really only gives you just more map control, so you can attack through into church.
I mean, moto drops are pretty common because they're pretty effective, and especially in pinching and things like that. But yeah, that blue control is always important with that, and it's a lot to coordinate. So having the hatches open just helps in general, especially with the stock hatches as well, because you can control blue a little bit better from above. But they are doing their droning, trying to clear out any of those potential roamers. In the smoke, being all the way up here in the blue stairs, this is very risky. He's hoping for some luck here, but losing the smoke early would definitely not be great to delay, as of course the echo is banned, so they can't be played. And then there's no Meister or anything to help with delay either. So it's down to maybe even just goo mines if that smoke dies early, especially with the ability of the Capitao and the Lion to really push for a smoke plant and not a lot to counter it. So they're definitely going to have to be careful. Fall's going to have to be smart about this.
We might see Borer use one of his charges to open up an entrance into the server, but no, they'll send Ash in first, so that's to clear things out from here. Makes a lot more sense here. Really don't want to throw out too much utility early on, and Rainbow6 is just moving out to waste time. This is very well done by Team 1. It's very ballsy, and INTZ are definitely not pushing themselves too far forward against it.
It doesn't seem like it's slowing them down as much as I'm sure they would like.
Exothermic charge has been used, though, to open things up from the top.
Okay, that's going to be a big cost.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if they're not planning on fighting the church wall anyways because of the bandit batteries and no Thatcher, then maybe that's fine in a situation where you don't need that extra thermo charge, but
it's not a great bit of flexibility to have for later on in the round. But grabbing the Capitao, which is something we touched on before, is it's usually used to attack in from or into blue hatch.
Yeah.
That's something that just gives you more flexibility.
What I'm concerned about is the Maverick still hasn't been doing his job, and it's already more than halfway into the round, and it takes a while to open those hatches, so they're really going to have to not depend on hatches. I think blue control is going to have to be a critical part there. He's finally getting the bar hatch here, and hopefully he can get that open in quick time.
He's out. Oh, he can't open a second one now.
Well, they are. They left this one soft.
Yeah, because they put the 2 reinforcements up in server, and you need so many reinforcements for downstairs.
That's a good point.
Okay. That makes a lot more sense. It's obviously very difficult to spot all of the hatches.
I guess then Thermite is given a little bit of a free pass.
Yeah, at this point it's fine, but there's still not much time left. So even if you look at it that way, all of that was wasted. We're at 35 and everybody's full HP.
I think Rise is going to be critical in this. If Rise can stay alive, keep his goo mines going, there's not going to be enough time for push. Drunks is going to be critical with this Firebolt here to try and make this happen. Traps him in both of them, but he gets away!
Rise will still find one and does. Oh no, the Axe is killed. Your Spearhead is out. Rayduct will find one on intact. We might see someone drop this Capitao upstairs from the hatch. Peeking around the corner, Drunks will still find the kill. A 3v4 with 10 seconds left. INTZ drops the diffuser by Moto and fails. It's just gonna lock. Falls is gonna lock it down. Just 2 for him and Luke it for the last one on VNX. Took way too long and leaving the power players alive. It was just everybody coming in from one singular angle, and that's very easy to predict. With all guns loaded and ready, Team 1 just dispatch INTZ.
That was fantastic defense. They didn't overextend themselves. I mean, it was a little risky with Falls playing, in such a position, but he was set up at an angle that, assuming he didn't end up, getting his head taken off, he could retreat back to site fairly safely. But that was, it was a little bit slow for INTZ. They really didn't seem to have an idea on how Team 1 was going to play that because of the reinforcements, because of the fact that they looked like they were going to commit so heavily to roam and then didn't. They fell back. I think that really threw INTZ off. This time, though, we're going to have the Kaid for Jim. Interestingly, they're not going to go to Cash second, so we'll see whether or not that pays off here, which is interesting because this is not a hatch-heavy site, but you do still have some walls. You can use it on the Jacuzzi wall, for example, and they also have the Bandit, so without the Thatcher, they're really going to be dependent on a few different angles and tricks to try and take out batteries or the electrical. I don't know, this might actually delay INTZ yet again. They might really struggle unless the Maverick does his job again quickly, which we definitely did not see from Intact last round.
And what you're looking for if you're INTZ is to use the Capitao on the gym window and use the Capitao to burn away the Bandits that's going to usually be there. But because you're bringing both the Bandit and the Clyde, as you mentioned, Devin.
Yeah, they don't have to sit there.
Exactly. You can just chuck it from the other side of the hallway where you're completely safe. What some teams would have done in the past is run a Dokkaebi, for example, walk up the back stairs. It's a lot of work that you can do with the SMG-12. It's just in the situation you're kind of locked down. You're going to go in with lower rate of fire weaponry, and you just can't really take those fights and come out on top.
Oh, again, aggressive play off-site to an extent, but not too far from the site, but just the peeking coming out. This time it's Rise. Definitely one of the stronger fraggers on the team, going to be playing in, again, aggressive position, and Lukid actually taking up the Legion, but we actually have Reduct actually taking a little bit of damage early on. That Kaid needs to stay alive if they're going to try and trick it at all and not just throw it on the walls. Very aggressive defense here in terms of angle peeking, not necessarily positioning.
Yeah, these are obviously your regular positions to hold, but this is beautiful play from the Maverick here. He's trying to find this shot onto him. Remember, when you use the Electric Claw, any surface that's within the circle of it will just completely be electrocuted. So what INTZ is going to try to do here, possibly, is just completely destroy the half wall.
We're referring to it as Maverick tricking now, according to Kick. So he's going to try and Maverick trick the wall, which is, for those of you not familiar, you burn it a certain way that it actually destroys the reinforcement, leaving the soft wall intact, which Buck will then have to open.
Yeah, and basically that's how it works. You have to erase the top and the bottom, and then it disappears.
We saw quite a bit of that recently, so it's definitely become a big thing, but it uses up a lot of your torch.
And a lot of your time. We're at halfway point, barely any bit of damage done.
This is the peak everyone's worried about now. When you're playing on that jacuzzi patio, you always have to worry about the peak from that dirt tunnel. You see little holes being opened up and just a nice angle to fight through.
And the other bit of tricking here is that there's already players from Team 1 that have fallen back into the bathroom. So they already have a Tila that protects them from there and don't have to worry about their opponents kind of pushing them. On the other hand, though, this means that it will get very complicated for you to deal with Jim because you only have one singular angle to fight it. 1
minute left, and they're just now getting the wall open as well. A little bit of late setup, but yeah, that bathroom is super key, and it's electrified. So their setup is a position where Thermite cannot open it, and Maverick trying to open it, he can open a little hole, but doing more than that is very risky.
Skadinha is holding the opposite angle here in the hallway. Boar with an extra flashbang with a grenade coming right on out, but there's still nothing burned on the other side. He has the exothermic charge, but he can't actually use it. The hole had already been opened up, but they're kind of using the reinforcement here in the attack to their advantage. Skadinha still peeking around the window, not going to find anybody by the bedroom. We're again at the 20 seconds, and Reduct will still find one on Duds. Great play there with a shotgun. Lukid with another. INTZ will find Rise, but the Claymore as well on a Reduct. Free fire from Drunks. He tries to take control of the hallway, but there's nobody planting just yet. Lukid for another. His double kill for the round. Diffuser's dropped on the floor. VNX coming around here with a goo mine in foot. Drunks will find one kill, but not enough time. Team 1 will take it on pure time.
Yeah.
Again.
And that's what it's really coming down to. That Thatcher ban is really hurting INTZ. And just in terms of the way that it's being played around with by Team 1, they're setting up in ways that make it very, very difficult for them to do it in a timely manner or a safe manner. And also the Maverick is just being a bit slow on it. You saw a little bit of sloppiness, for example, when he was trying to get the bottom of that jacuzzi wall. Things like that will end up burning you fuel and costing you a lot of time, because when it comes to Maverick tricking, you have to be consistent with those lines. You have to get the whole thing. Stuff like that is just slowing them down, and Team 1 is playing perfectly off that. I mean, yes, they did get a little greedy. You saw, for example, the Claymore kill, things like that. They get a little cocky towards the end of the rounds when the time is low for INTZ, and that's what INTZ needs to play smart off of. They need to take advantage of when time starts getting low and the pressure is on them. They need to take advantage of knowing that Team 1 is going to be slightly more aggressive on that, because they're not playing super turtle against that.
I mean, the Claymore definitely helped, but when you're still also losing your 1v1 fights on top of it, it really does not help your case.
And this is somewhat of a defender-sided map at the moment, so it's a situation where you kind of expect this a little bit, but I think Team 1 are playing into that well.
Yeah, the Thatcher ban definitely helps them. I mean, for a lot of people watching might be wondering, okay, how do I use the operator bans to my advantage? You know you're going to start off on the defense. It's exactly what Team 1 knows. Like, okay, let's maximize the amount of wins that we can get on this side. We'll ban the Thatcher. We will probably have some sort of other plan to secure the last couple of rounds that we might need on the attack. But let's just double down on the fact that I was starting off on defense, because it's not negligible the amount of psychological and morale damage that you can do to your opponents while having them losing round after round due to these sorts of things. You really do enter the second half with an advantage. The Mute Jammer is going to get destroyed here, so this time Mute, Bandit, and caught it up by Team.
Bandit battery on the other walls. They're really going down on delaying and taking full advantage of that Thatcher that you were just saying, trying to get as many points as they can.
Yeah, sure, now you open up the wall to enter into Garage, but doesn't really give you all of the flexibility you'd like, and I assume the Maestro is still playing on top. Now again, we don't have direct observer feed, so we can't really direct where we'd be looking at, but that's usually where the Maestro would be. A lot of teams would bring a dock instead of the Maestro, and they're both very valid in their own way. But Boar will go for the same exact strategy we saw before.
Yeah.
This is something you have to adapt to, but he's got to be careful because he'll take chip damage off of the reinforcement itself because of the electricity on it.
Plus, you scream real loud, and that's really obvious. Because Maverick plays off being quiet. The screams don't help with that.
Yeah, that's definitely very stealthy. Stealth is an option.
Well, he's getting the job done to an extent here, and it's not as slow as the Jacuzzi wall, at least thankfully, as he can do the rappel upside down right there and get it going. But he's got to worry about garage runouts still. Unfortunately for them, it looks like they're more concerned with just holding the catwalk.
One thing Boar is doing very well in that opening is that he's starting off with the top side first. It means, and especially in the way that he was opening the angle, if you were looking at the Bandit POV, it's very difficult to play anything against them, and even C4 would really connect correctly if you were to shoot it. And then you open the bottom side of it, it makes it much more easy, or much easier.
Yeah, and you have someone usually repelling to try and fight it. And there we go. Some of the Captel bolts really, well, I was going to say paying off, but Intact actually pays the price for that, and that's the hard breacher down there. So that's going to be important, getting that wall open. Duds trading it off on a Rise.
Oh, so much damage done, but still, Drunks is able to get the kill. Falls on top of the railing here. 50 seconds left. He'll pre-fire into the balcony, watching for opponents to walk in from garage, but he's unsure of where the next bit of aggression will come in. There's still players that can enter from the main doorway here, and there's no... Well, is there? Yes, there is. There's a reinforcement. So Falls can just stay in this exact position and be hidden from almost anything. Not sure if there's any crossbow bolts left on the Capitao, but there's so little HP between the Zofia, the Capitao, and the Buck. It's any bullet from anything.
The plus side is the diffuse carrier is the one with the most health. But there we go. There goes Falls.
Great shot from Duds to take him out as Falls is just walking and looking at the opposite end here in the entrance. Lukit will find one on VNX. Boar, Drunks, and Duds, last three alive. And as Lukit turns around, he'll get taken down. Skadinya will just stop the diffuser before it gets planted. Turns it 1v1. That's low on HP, and Skadinya will find it. Duds to go down, and Team 1. Yet another round on the board here. 3 on the defense. This one, though, it got way too close.
Well, you can see why this is their third bomb site rather than their primary. This definitely doesn't seem to be their strongest, as they were definitely getting hit by a lot of angle play, peeking maybe a little unnecessary like I was saying in the previous rounds, but in this case, the angles were a little bit more favorable to INTZ. Not to mention INTZ were able to get their setup done kind of uncontested. They didn't have to spend a lot of time roam clearing for this particular site because they had an idea where pretty much everyone on Team 1 was. So because of that, they were a little more time efficient as well, gave them the chance to peek angles and hold angles instead of having to try and rush in at the last second. And I think that somewhat paid off, but in the end of the day, you know, like you said, it was close, and Team 1 managed to pull it off. Just being able to, again, play with that time to counter the aggression at the last second from INTZ. And that's 3 for 3 for the new team in Pro League.
It's very surprising when teams come in really for the first time and face off against Pro League teams. Now, INTZ obviously is not Liquid or FaZe. That's a different ball game, but they still were in the top contenders. They were mid of the pack. They're coming in. They have their experience for quite a while now in Pro League, so you'd expect better ways of dealing with things. But again, with the map design itself and that Thatcher ban, it really, really weighs down on INTZ. And there are very few teams that can actually play around this. You need to think about the site and your attack in a completely different manner.
Well, what'll be interesting is the one variation here that Team 1's coming out with, to me, suggests they're going to be playing actually a stronger roam potentially, or a little bit heavier upstairs, which is the alibi play. Now, I know you're like, alibi is not always a roamer, etc., but I think in this particular case, that's the purpose of bringing the alibi, is to be able to at least, if not play the actual roam, set up the holograms and set up for it for someone else to. Right, we'll see how it plays out. It looks like Falls actually still 2 batteries in his pocket playing upstairs here. Maybe just doesn't need those other ones. I guess not if they're not going to try and trick downstairs because there's no Thatcher or anything like that. And, I mean, it's a little bit risky, but they'll go for it. The one change as well from INTZ, no Capital this time.
Yeah, they went away from it. They're not going for that anymore.
It didn't do a ton for them except for on the catwalk, which ended up biting them actually.
So kind of forced them into a certain type of play where if they had the Habana and the Thatcher, the Capital would have worked very well because it allows you to open up extra angles. But here, because you don't have it, it kind of turns into...
Wow, that's a lot of utility dedicated upstairs here. They're really trying to make sure this is difficult. Oh, no, he's even going to get spotted on the Prisma for running his drone into the Prisma.
Yeah, and if you didn't know, by the way, if you run your drone into the Prisma, you do get spotted. So it's not just when you shoot it or walk into it yourself.
And that's the utility of having those on positions where you tend to be bottlenecks like that. Skadinia definitely staying alive very well up here. He is getting droned out, though, and I expect at some point they're going to start collapsing on him. There's some damage. But again, shooting the Prismas.
Yeah, it's just giving all of those marks, but also there's drones inside that are marking the defenders. Now, those defenders can walk away. They have the gym hatch to play against, and Drunks knows what's going on. But look at the amount of time that has been just drawn away. And INTZ haven't opened a single thing. They were fighting on the top floor.
I honestly feel like they've already lost this round just off of time. Yeah. And the fact that they didn't get any picks on Team 1. Just barely a little bit of damage onto Legion. Get a little bit longer. There you go. So this is looking very good for Team 1 to take at least 4 rounds in their defense.
Oh, they don't even have the reinforcement to Moto. Oh, they dedicated so many reinforcements to the top floor.
They don't need it time-wise at this point. Yeah. They're just going to be able to drop. I mean, yes, they gave Maverick a little bit of a time advantage, but...
Rainbow6 is even playing in Junkyard.
He's just hanging out, ready for that late flank. He's going to have to start moving pretty soon. You see him doing that now. He's going to crouch walk because it's going to take a while. This is where he really needs to time it well and hope there's some kind of intel. He is the one who put up the cameras, so hopefully they're in good spots for him.
Yeah, there's someone giving them information right now. I believe it's the bandit. So Rainbow6 is going to move around here into the
behind the bar. That lion kill would be beautiful here. That is great.
And he drops down. He's completely free.
Team 1 have this in the bag.
Oh my, this is just absolutely fantastic. It's very ballsy, and it takes a lot of cojones to be able to even attempt to play this sort of way. But the roam is working out so well. 10 seconds left. The Zofia peeks around the corner. The Maverick takes no damage in his peek as well. But Boar and Drunks will find a kill. Each look at with a refrag on the duds. And here's one as well from Skadinia. Boar will turn it into a 2v2 with no time left. Diffuser needs to go down, but it's a down. And it's round number 4 as well. That'll go to Team 1. Even with all the time being shaved off, it got way too close. But man, Team 1's roam is...
Yeah.
It's not just because Team 1 are running it well. It's that INTZ are taking the bait so wonderfully.
I gotta say, though, I still feel a little critical of the way that Team 1's playing the end of the rounds. They're losing way too many people when the time pressure is on INTZ. They're not playing angles and turtling up. They're just going for picks, and I think one of these times with these last 2 rounds, I feel like they're going to lose a round because of that. It's just getting too close when they have so much advantage at the end of that round. I mean, could you imagine if the Lion had gone off as well in tandem with all that push? I think they would have probably lost almost all their players, if not all of them, and the plant might have been able to go down as well.
Actually, yeah, this does make a lot of sense.
Bar.
If only we could go back and see if the Lion was actually used at the event.
Probably not. They're going to go bar.
I thought you were saying bar. We can't drink alcohol now. We're playing. We're working.
We're celebrating Team 1's inevitable win at this rate.
Oh, man. Honestly, if they successfully pull off bar...
Yeah. That's an impressive start.
I'm getting you a sugar-free drink, my friend.
That is wonderful. I'm looking forward then. So, I mean, I don't want to be biased, but then, yeah, Team 1 need to win bar.
We'll see how it works out. Well, the problem with bar is that it's so open, yet with this division in the center, it's very predictable to know where you're.
But they did show they played roam well, so there's that going for them,
which is nice. But the hatches are going to be very important for the defense here.
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure if they reinforced the jacuzzi position.
And they're going with the double heavies too.
Oh man.
ACOG peak time.
So they want to make sure they have as much sustenance as possible, and then they also bring the Maestro on top of it, and disruption and information from a Legion, and denying information with a mute. It's not just the Thatcher at this point. It's like, okay, well, we're forcing the Lion, but I don't think the Lion is really going to be the savior for this one. Even bringing the Jackal or Dokkaebi would have done things faster than the Lion.
Yeah, I think the Dokkaebi almost would have been a better choice.
Because with Lion, you not only need to use your E1D, you also need to be droning behind them. So it requires 2 players to be coordinating, and then a third maybe to walk in and grab the kill off of it. It's just, there's so much work to do.
Well, we also saw they're not the most efficient at droning because the Valkyrie was able to just hang out last time. But there's already the initial kill on the Buck, and that means a lot of destruction that won't be happening. It makes Team 1's job so much easier now.
This information gathering has just been excellent from Team 1, I have to say. And now Fall is going to still keep peeking these angles. Now, these are some that we've seen in the past, especially with APAC with Waka back in the day when he did play. Press F, please, to pay respects for Waka.
Yeah.
But he used to play on that ledge, and it gives you a lot of a lot of leeway when fighting against your opponents downstairs. Now it's kind of predictable, but when it was used back in the day, it definitely was a scary position to play against.
Minute and a half already burned, and they're still sitting pretty much comfortable in their positions, especially with that buck loss. Also, that means the grenades, the only grenades they had are off the board, and there's no Jaeger, so that's a big, big help. But it looks like INTZ dropping the diffuser to me means they're starting to get set up for a potential push here, but the Lion doesn't really gain them a whole lot because of the goo mines.
Zofia here, Duds just peeking around, but the Mute is just going to run away. There's so many rotation holes that have been opened up. The use of the impact grenade is just wonderfully made here by Team 1. The hatches definitely will work against you later on, but we're still under the minute left.
Those goo mines are really just being a huge pain for them upstairs.
At least there's some control of the pool table right now, but the Maestro should have at least some info on here. He's playing in the back, and he might go for the peek, but Intact is just primed and ready for the angle.
Do not peek that Rise. You do not need to.
There you go. The Jackal's going to open things up. That's a flashbang that should not have gone there.
Misclick, I imagine.
Yeah, that's a fat finger if I've ever seen one. Intact will turn around and exothermic charge the wall to enter. At least the Maestro will have some sort of angle to play with from there to deny a push. There's no movement on top of it. Finally, the E1D is going to get popped. Nobody moving. It just forces everybody into one position. 15 seconds left. Legion is so close. He'll do a lot of damage to Duds, but it's not enough to take him out. Intact with one as well. Mute's Falls will just throw out the C4, but it's a bit too premature. Duds walking on in, not finding a single kill just yet. Lukid will just deny the diffuser from being planted, and no, again, time is of the essence. Yet another loss off of time, and Team 1 burn the candle all the way. Round number 6. Woo. Now starting off with all 5 in control of Team 1. Man.
What a debut.
What a debut. That is definitely how you want to start things off.
Put a little fear into the other teams out here. Well, that was definitely a round, though, where I thought it was going to get close to that throw because of over-peaking at the end in terms of Team 1 just overplaying their hand. But
one bar!
They pulled it back, though. They pulled it back right at the last second. When the plant was starting to go down, they just managed to get the plant kill and then pulled it back. They didn't give him a chance to frag out, and I think that was the little bit of restraint there that we needed to see.
And you know what really played into their whole strategy by the end? They had already gotten the kill on the Buck. They had the extra manpower.
Yeah, and no
the Zofia had to drop into the pool table, and that's when there was the bounce from the top floor. They still rotated in. They still had control, Team 1, of the staircase that allowed them to fight against their opponents.
I think what we need to see from INTZ is much faster pinches on roamers, much faster roam clear map control in terms of holding it and moving forward at all times, rather than, it seems like they're maybe droning a bit too much, which droning's great, but you need to have people following those drones, or you're droning for almost no reason. But you're trying to see it in an empty room that might not even be empty by the time you get to it. So I gotta say, that's definitely a big weakness. However, once we switch sides after this round, it might be a totally different ballgame. INTZ might just be golden on the defense as well, and we can end up with a tie. It's entirely possible. Team 1, though, going to be playing that Kaid again for the gym. We saw it work out very well last time. We'll see how quickly Maverick can get that wall open and whether or not that'll be a big factor.
Well, INTZ really have to play with whatever they've got here. I know this map is really the most defender-sided currently in, well, the second most. Villa is number 1, but it's still one of the most defender-sided maps in the pool. It's still not great when you're down 5-0, and the Thatcher is really working well. And it's not just that; it's kind of INTZ unsure of what operators really to pick to deal with their opponents.
That's what I want to see when Team 1 switches to attack, how they're planning to handle having a Thatcher, because they've obviously planned for it, so their attack strats are so... That is not so great here. This is looking poor. The combination of the Kaid and the Bandit is really sticking it to him.
And they'll know that the second charge is about to go off, and it will open up. There you go. Skadinia is forced to retreat. And this time it's just much better time management.
Yeah. Still has a lot of time burned, but it's a question of how they move from here. Do they get the bathroom open? Do they put pressure on the bathroom? Do they pinch from the construction side that Lukid's holding? All of those things are going to factor into whether or not they've already burned up too much time, because they're just now trying to get control of the office, droning Jim. This time spent droning is great and all, but it's time spent.
One player in the back, still the Jaeger, and the Kaid is downstairs, so You might be seeing some... I'm not sure if this was fixed or not, but you can still impact from below. You can still use the floorboards in the showers or in gym to your advantage. Now, there's no shotgun being played for the Cloud, so it's very restrictive, but still, it is some sort of extra bit of flexibility compared to the overall rigidness of this defense. More holes being opened up here by the Maverick at pretty much head level here when standing up, and Intact is unable to find anyone in the back. Nothing's...
We're just waiting for this to backfire on them.
it will. That's what I expect to happen as well. And there you go. Rise will just peek around the gym. The shield has not been destroyed, so he can use that very much to his advantage, and everybody really piling up from INTZ. No one watching the outside. Extra smoke being popped into the back as the E1D will get used. Drunks will find a kill on Skadino with a refrag from Falls. Intact trying to walk into the site. Falls will find a second one. He's just playing around the back. That's a triple kill for him. VNX to pre-fire, but Lucat is ready just on the peek out, and oh man. That's a 6-0.
Yeah.
That absolutely, I mean, at the last second, the last player alive is trying to come into construction. That's way too little, way too late, Devin.
Now, if you want to see an attacking team with a good strategy with no Thatcher and how well you can attack still, go look at Reciprocity versus EG. The way Reciprocity played against having no Thatcher, because EG had banned the Thatcher, that's how INTZ needed to be playing it. They weren't. But now you've got a good contrast. You can see maybe how not to play, but also still credit to Team 1. Fantastic play on their part. We'll see, though, how INTZ play their defense, whether or not they can be as effective. They are going to go with Church with the Kaid, see whether or not that stops the hatches from getting open. Basically the same lineup, though, coming up from Team 1 that we saw from INTZ on the attack. So it's just a question of better utilization, possibly.
Would actually work out? Well, I'm very curious, as you mentioned before, I mean, how Team 1 actually want to break through this sort of defense. Now, INTZ are definitely going to double down and run the Cloud themselves, but Team 1 were not playing Cloud to deal with hatches, right? You very astutely mentioned that. It was mostly to play...
Well, they even left hatches soft sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
Reinforcement subset. So hatches were just like, you know what? They're going to go. We'll just delay them getting to the hatches.
Now there's double reinforcement upstairs here in the server room, so
the Vigil is a difference maker as well as the Castle as well. This is definitely a very different lineup on the defense.
I wonder where the Castle is going to be used. We'll be spotting around those barricades at some point in time.
Yeah. It seems like they could be helped for Roam here. You see them setting up one on the pool table, for example. They're really going very Roam heavy. Just a question whether or not they can pull it off as well as Team 1. Because Team 1 obviously are hopefully prepared for that, but they're already going in very aggressively, nearly losing their own head and Boom Mines. That's not going to really work.
They might just try to drop down into the site. Rayduct will peek on around, and there should have been a drone here to give him information. There you go. The Cloud just spotted out. Intact, taken away. The second one as well. That's the Castle. Rayduct mopping them up. That's 2, and the site is completely open. The reinforced hatches now play against the defensive INTZ. More flashes in as Skadina will find one. VNX turning around, though, from the oil pit. Try and slow it out. 2v2 now. It does onto Rise. And the defenders are trying to attack into the site. This is absolutely insane to watch as Duds and VNX try to turn around the side. There should be some sort of drone to give information, but Lucat be able to set the diffuser down. Now, unless you want to use the Nitro Cell, now there you go. They have to use the impact grenade to open up the entrance into Church, and the diffuser is set again. On the opposite end, the second impact grenade to be used. Lucat will take one down.
Oh, the Claymore.
There's the last peak. Claymore as well as Skadina will take down Duds, and that's it. Our first game of LATAM Pro League Season 10 is a straight-up flawless 7-0 by the newcomers from Challenger League Team 1.
Now, Team 1 as an org picked them up while they were in Challenger League. It wasn't one of those ones where they were like waited to see. And credit to Team 1 for spotting some good talent.
That's a lot of teamwork up there, and the reason why you'd see Rise not really hitting it up with the rest is because first everybody else was taking the kills. Oh. He's the support playing on the site. He's your anchor.
He's generally one of their top fraggers as well. It's just he was playing very good roam in a situation where he was burning so much time he didn't need to get frags. So, I mean, credit to them. That was a good retake, though. I want to highlight the fact that the retake was actually very strong at first, but then they just sat there waiting for the diffuser to get planted. That was the big flaw, was waiting. The Claymore being there didn't help. He had an impact and then used it somewhere else instead of hitting the Claymore. You saw it get thrown across and not successful. He had to take the fight across against Dirt, but that early control by Capitao of Arsenal was... They just...
He had a drone. He had a drone to give him all the information.
That's what you do. Follow up the drone.
And that's how it works. When you see top fraggers doing their job and really putting up the frags on the board, it's because there's somebody droning them in. The supports are really the highlight operators for it. It's difficult to see, and we don't always get to see it, but there it was a clear description of how it works out. The drone already gave information on one position, gave the second as the Capitao was turning around, and caught it, and then the castle were both dead. And there was just no way to react to it. Very impressive. Team 1 pulling out strategies that are not unorthodox. It's not something we've seen for the first time, but the way they executed and how INTZ fell and took the bait is just stupendous.
I gotta say, though, I am pretty disappointed in Team 1 in that they didn't lose enough matches or rounds for us to see more of their attack. We got to see one round of it.
Look at this guy.
Right? Just throw a few rounds so we could see some more, right? It's just... I mean, I was very, very impressed with Team 1. They seemed very confident. This seemed like this is the map we wanted. These are the bans we needed. We know exactly how to play this. And just INTZ completely out of their element.
All right, thank you very much. So that's game number 1. We still have 3 more to go. That one was, even with the initial rehost, was very, very fast, I have to say. So maybe we'll get longer games today, later on, but maybe we'll actually get to see Cafe. I'm pretty excited to see that. But our highlight game of the evening, FaZe Clan versus Team Liquid, is coming up right after this break, so stick around.